Hello, 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 New Haven. I should say Greater New Haven, and wherever people are joining in from. My mom from Detroit sometimes listens, so hi, mommy. Um, today I am very, very excited because we are branching out into the region, which we're trying to do a much better job of here at the Arts Council of Greater New Haven. And I am joined by both the creative minds behind and those that will be center stage in a memory of truth, coming to the Madison Lyric Stage tent on the grounds of the Deacon John Grave House for 4 performances, May 9th through 11th. It is a world premiere, which I feel like I don't get to say that often. So thank you, Marc Deaton, for allowing me to talk about the fact that we're having a world premiere really in our backyard
My
of the
pleasure. Thanks
show.
for inviting me.
Yeah, and not only is it a world premiere, it is a collaboration with Madison Youth and Family Services. And we have Justin Ziegler here from Madison Youth and Family Services, as well as Debbie Freund, who plays Delilah in the show, and Emma Palzier Ray, who plays Eve in the show. I'm really excited, so let's just hop into it. Marc Deaton, I'm going to go to you first and talk about what this show is. Um, yeah, let's just jump off there and talk about this show and sort of how it's been growing and germinating, which you mentioned a little bit while we were off mic.
Well, it's a play with music, and it's somewhat a memoir. I wrote it during the pandemic because I didn't have anything else to do, so it seemed like a good time to develop some ideas that were germinating. So I wrote it in 2020, and we did a small workshop, which was actually very exciting to do a workshop in the middle of the pandemic, and it created, I think, a ferocity and an intimacy that was really, really special. And after that, I developed it further and kind of reformatted it, and we decided that for 2025, as we go into our 13th season with Madison Lyric Stage, that we would present it as a fully staged work. And it's an amazingly interesting work, I think. Of course, I wrote it, so I have to think that. And I am also directing it, as it seemed only like I should. And I am also taking a role in it. Not as large a role as some of the others, thank goodness. And it's a story that centers around three women. It's based loosely on the three women who brought me up. And the time period goes from the late 1950s through the 1990s. And it's basically an analysis and an observation of these three women. It's a mother and two daughters who had, of course, a lifelong relationship together. And I think that those relationships were perhaps closer than any other relationships they had in their life. And the focus of that relationship is sometimes placed upon a character named Thaddeus, who I play in later life. That he's the grandson and son and nephew of the three women, and he goes through a lot of different struggles in his life as a gay man, coming along in the 60s and 70s, which had its challenges, believe it or not, for those of us who remember that. And also there are, I will admit, some really strong elements of abuse and neglect, and a lot of challenges. But in addition to those challenges, there are just, I think, it's a chance to truly celebrate them, warts and all. So often we only celebrate the kind of good, happy times, but I think that we need to also celebrate and give attention to those people who lived a good, strong, difficult life. And that's basically it. And it's wrapped together with music that's all based on themes, but from Gregorian chant all the way to bluegrass music with a small combo.
That's amazing. And I'm wondering, this is such a small technical question, but if really quickly you can clarify for viewers, the difference, because sometimes when I say play with music,
Mm-hmm.
what people imagine is like a Broadway kick line, which is great. We love a kick line. But that I sense is not what this is.
Broadway kickling. I'm not
Or
sure.
or like a music, like a full
Like a
music.
musical. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So the reason I say that it's a play with music is that it's not technically a musical. Now, it's confusing, and I of course pretentiously would like to think that my composer and I have created a whole new genre. I come from the opera world, and so it's not an opera, it's not fully sung. It's not a musical in that it's not mostly sung, with little bits of dialogue that take you from song to song or number to number. It's a true straight play with speeches and monologues, which my colleagues thank me for writing for them at great length. Then it's all bound together by musical pieces that further the action and, in fact, are sometimes sung by some of the characters as characters. So it's kind of the idea is it's an experiment to take drama and bring it across both in spoken word, sung word, and semi-spoken word.
And so I want to get to the play itself and bring in Debbie and Emma, but first I just want to say, as you're writing, did you have this idea in the back of your mind, Mark, about like maybe especially because this is addressing some difficult, sticky, thorny issues, right? You never know who's going to be in your audience who, I hate the word triggered, but maybe is a little bit triggered by this show. Was it in the
Oh,
back of your mind to work with um an organization like Madison Youth and Family Services and to have to have those conversations at some point throughout bringing this show to the stage.
it's a marvelous question. And of course, I couldn't have entered into the project without knowing that it was going to trigger everyone, including me. And that was the reason to do it. One of the main reasons to do it. First and foremost, I wanted it to be the story of these three women because people who come through this type of life seldom get any attention brought to them. We just forget them, or we blame them for everything and then we forget them. And so it was important to me to bring attention to these women and their lives. And with that is going to come some triggering because it's not easy going. And we're in a world now where we're always a little afraid of anything that we might, number one, understand or not understand. So it leaves you in the middle a little bit. So I try, while I do give certain trigger messaging in advance, I try not to give away too much because I feel like that kind of does the piece a disservice. But with that, I knew that I always wanted to co-produce with an organization that helped children, that helped women, that helped people in general in terms of social services, psychiatric services. The piece also deals with mental illness, schizophrenia specifically, alcoholism, incest, a lot of things, all wrapped up. And there's some laughs too. But it was important to me to try and align ourselves with an organization that is actually out helping people have a better life now. And in fact, the program, which I'll let Justin speak to specifically, that we are embracing directly through Madison Youth and Family Services, is in fact to help children specifically with specific needs, which relates very strongly to when I was growing up, my much younger brother and sister who were in foster care. I was not in foster care, but they were later. And so a lot of those issues mean a great deal to me. And I want to try and, with the piece, show people where we were and then in fact where we are, and that there's so much that has changed and has happened and developed, but there's a lot that still hasn't changed and still needs to be changed.
Yeah, I think, and we'll come back to this later. I think, unfortunately, this feels like a very timely discussion. Maybe it's never not a timely discussion, but we have seen not even the slow, like the very precipitous erosion of social services that are extremely needed. So, Justin, I'm going to
Yeah, there's
bring.
nothing slow about it. It's
No,
just,
it's like it's a
yeah, yeah,
landslide.
yeah.
Um, and often, I think folks of all ages who are struggling with mental illness, um, like deserve both social services and compassion, but children are often among the most vulnerable. That's true across the board when you're talking about multiple things. And so, Justin, I'm going to bring it to you and talk a little bit about your work and then the collaboration between MYFS and Madison Lyric Stage.
Yeah, so I work at Madison Youth and Family Services as one of our assistant directors. I oversee our community support team, which is social services, drug and alcohol prevention. But Madison Youth and Family Services is our service bureau in the town of Madison. So we serve young people and families. We have an outpatient mental health clinic that serves young people from birth to 21. And their families. We have a social service program, like I said. We have drug and alcohol prevention. We have positive youth development that seeks to serve in our school systems and provide leadership opportunities and growth in that way. And, as Marc said, one of the things that we're really grateful for is that every year our back to school program, which is not part of our budget, we just have to magically find the money somewhere. And lovely community members and businesses and churches and synagogues, places of worship pitch in to make sure that every child who reaches out and needs financial support to start the school year with haircuts, shoes, everything, supplies, everything and anything that they need, we help provide that through Madison Youth and Family Services. So we also are literally next door. We're neighbors. We can see the tent go up. It's a really fun part of our year. And it's been really great to build a stronger and closer relationship and discussing these things, which our agency finds to be really important to discuss in our community of mental health, substance use, and protecting our most vulnerable folk. And that includes children. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to partner and participate, and really excited to see where this partnership can grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So Emma and Debbie, I want to bring you in as folks who are, Marc, you're in the show too. You're a Renaissance man actor wearing like all the hats right now.
I scrub the bathrooms.
Yeah, well, and that's what we do at small nonprofits too, right?
Absolutely.
And Justin, I feel like when you were talking about the work that MYFS does and sort of the attempt, especially right now, to provide wraparound services, you've probably like ended up cleaning a sink at the end of the day after.
So happy to give a hug with one hand and then run and grab a plunger with the other.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
At the end of the day.
This sounds like prime nonprofit. Yep. So Emma and Debbie, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you came to this show and what the experience of being in this show, of bringing the story to life, is like for you, especially because it is a world premiere. I think there's something pretty singular and very special about that. And whoever wants to hop in.
Yeah, but you go first. Since
okay. So I had met Marc a few years ago, and had always wanted to work with Madison Lyric Stage. And earlier this year, I was thrilled when he reached out to me. I was immediately taken by the piece. He sent me a copy of the script. I just feel that it is such an important piece. I also come from an entire background. I worked for DCF for 17 years, and so the whole play of the continuity, especially among women, and women with children, and this starts with my character. I'm the grandmother, and I was actually raised during the Depression, and it goes all the way up through Thaddeus as an adult, and so it goes through a different generation by generation, but also the traumas of generations that we pass on, and all of the children, and the many, many men. I think there's like 12 men between the three of us who come and go in our lives, and with the raising and and abandonment of children. I think it is such an important piece. My character as the mother, I get to push all the buttons, and I do it often. I know where it hurts and where it zings, and I make a point of pushing those buttons.
And are you, I'm gonna just hop in, are you in real life? So I know that when one is an actor, one does not specifically have to have the lived experience. But are you a mom, a sister, like have
All
you,
of those things.
yeah.
I
So-
am not a grandmother, but
So-
I am definitely, I was a foster mom.
So do you feel part of that? You know, I've talked to some folks who are in all make and manner of shows where they've said, "Oh, my character, you know, is so different than I am." But do you feel like a certain kinship with Delilah at certain moments?
I hope I'm not Delilah. Marc, please.
You're not.
I
But you
think
will be for
being-
2 weeks.
I'm only
Or-
teasing. I'm only
but
teasing. But certainly what the traumas of life that we all share, they're not the same for any of us. For Thaddeus, there are some incredibly horrific things that happens over the course of his upbringing. There is great wealth and great success ultimately, and incredible poverty and abuse, both psychologically, emotionally, and physically. And how he comes to rise through it. It is, I think, in terms of touching triggers for all of us, it's not the circumstances, the specific circumstances, it's the feelings and the pain that we all carry through our lives.
Yes, and I think I'll rephrase my question in that I think there are, when one is a parent, there are ways that you protect your child. And so I'm curious, you know, when you first read the character of Delilah, did you think, like, I know how to step into these shoes because I am so not her, or I so wouldn't do that, or I wanted to shield someone from the world in a way that she did not?
You know, Delilah absolutely sees herself as the caretaker. She steps in all the time in her children's lives and her grandchildren's lives, but the obvious she always misses. And how she perpetuates the trauma going forward, somehow or another she misses. And I really hope I do not do that. No, I know you're not.
You don't.
That. But, you know, but it could be in anything in terms of raising children. You know, we all have bad days. We all say things we don't mean. We all look the other way when a child is making a plea to us, whatever it is. And so that very much, I mean, she tries to be good-hearted, not always. She likes to push those buttons, but she misses the obvious.
So
Emma.
I'm going to bring you in, and I would love to know the same from you.
Yeah. So I worked with Madison Lyric Stage, I think 6 years ago. Marc had cast me in Agnes of God, and we've stayed in touch over the years. And he called me out of the blue last week to say, last minute, he needed to replace an actress for this production. So the schedule happened to work out. I read the script. I said, yes, I'm in. So it's been a whirlwind. It will be a whirlwind because it's a very meaty, complex script. And Eve is the oldest daughter of Delilah, who their relationships are so complex. So they're all very close, but they all have their things that they push each other with. And Eve is referred to as the great secret keeper. But she doesn't always hold back when they're just them, right? She uses those secrets. to her advantage at different times. So there's really interesting dynamics between not only the three women, but just and how this play is structured and the story told.
And as y'all, I mean, at this point, so Marc, you mentioned like a read through back in 2020, which is now 5 years ago, which I can't really entirely wrap my head around.
I agree.
But we're now, I think, like 2.5 weeks away, right, from opening. If I don't know, I do reporter math, so y'all can check me on that. How does it feel to be on the precipice of presenting this thing, which you like has gone through this period of gestation and I'm sure transformation to the world?
Well, the idea of presenting it to the world feels good, feels easy, because I feel like the work has been done on the piece. I feel like the piece is what I want it to be, hopefully. And I also, I'm very, very lucky because I have a cast who really gets it and also is really working on it. They're very disciplined, very hardworking, and fun and funny at the same time. And I wanted to put that in there as a part of this, that in spite of all of the poignancy, or in addition to all of the poignancy and the rough coverage, there's also they are making it really very funny in a lot of places, which is what I really, really wanted to have happen, because then it's real. Because life is funny, even when you're talking about really the worst things on the planet. You will always try and find some kind of humor in it. And I obviously went to a therapist at some point, and one of the main things that she said to me was, she said, I think the reason you were able to survive this life the way that you have is because you can sit back and tell the story and be funny about it. And she's absolutely right. It keeps you humble, and it keeps you honest, and it keeps you from going to that other place all the time. And so that was what I really wanted to try and accomplish with this particular piece. Also, hopefully it will look beautiful and sound beautiful, and I know that'll happen because they're all truly tremendous. We have a wonderful young actor, Logan Klingon, who's coming from New York, who plays Thaddeus in the earlier years, and it's really such an incredible joy to just kind of see them become essences of me and back and forth, but yet it's not really me. And having this discussion of, yes, these characters are based on people that are real to me, including me, but they're creating their own characters and giving them life in a very different way. And that's what you want, because that's real. Otherwise it's just imitation, and well, I guess there's room for that, but not in this. So I'm very excited about it. It's a little intense right now because we're in the final, we just barely got up on the stage. The tent has just gotten up, and we're trying to sell tickets and, get all of that going. You got all the costumes there. And it's going to be, I think, very visually appealing, and I think orally appealing. But most importantly, we are a theater that not only entertains, but we want to inform. And there's not as much room for that in the arts world today as there once was. I don't know, maybe there never was, but we're still trying. We're still trying to push that envelope to show people what we see in life and what we would like to share with them.
I want to talk about that a little bit more, because I feel like in the arts world there is this inherent tension right now, but maybe always, between like folks who want to make art for art's sake, which is great for them. Folks who say, I have this story, it is hard, it's going to be difficult to tell and difficult to hear, and in something like the performing arts, difficult for folks to bring to life. And then also people who say, I don't want there to be a premium on my pain. I want to go like write about clouds, or I don't know, teenagers having sex for the first time, or coming of age. And so I'm wondering if you can talk about the importance to you of educating and informing and finding those moments of humor. I think you're absolutely right that humor not only can be a balm, but it totally is a coping mechanism. I think especially in the times in which we're living.
Oh, I think absolutely. Anytime you have, family members or anyone in some type of relationship, if there's a conflict, there's usually going to be some kind of not taking yourself so seriously and a calming down and even a kind of a funny moment. It's just how people do. It's how we exist. It's how we survive that and find some kind of solution. And so I think it's important to bring people things that are truthful, not even just the serious things, but the happy things too. And I think that we have, unfortunately, and perhaps it's always been there somewhat, we live in a society that is somewhat synthetic. We want to kind of, put filters on all of us and make sure we don't really see all of it. Because somehow we feel like people can't handle seeing all of it. But you know what? They can. And one of many years ago, again, coming from opera, I had someone say, like, I was being interviewed and they said, how do you get people to come to an opera? Or no, excuse me. How do you get people to like opera? And I go, well, what makes you think they already don't if they haven't even seen it? What's difficult is to get them into the seats past this barricade of everything that we're told we don't like or we don't want to see or that we don't want to be triggered by. A lot of times people really like being triggered because it opens up things and makes them see things with truth rather than with fear and unsurety. At least that's been my experience.
So I want to, if folks are just joining us or if you've been listening to us, hanging out with us here on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, I just want to remind you that it's Arts Respond. I'm your host, Lucy Gellman. I sound like a frog because my kid brought home a bug from daycare. Thank you to them. And I am here with the playwright and some of the cast members of A Memory of Truth, which is debuting or premiering at Madison Lyric Stage on the grounds of the Deacon John Grieve House for 4 performances. That's 4 performances only, y'all.
4 performances.
Yes, from May 9th to 11th, which is coming up. I don't know how it's almost May. So I want to ask all of you, and Justin, maybe I'll hop back to you to kick us off. How does it feel? So obviously when you're writing a work, you don't have a crystal ball, Marc, and you can't see into the future. Although I feel like if you've lived in this country for a while, you maybe have an idea of like some of the contours of the future. But how does it feel? Justin, I'll ask you first, and then I would love to open it to Marc and Emma and Debbie to be presenting this show right now, especially because it, I think, acknowledges not just like spiritual and emotional pain, but trauma, abuse, and mental illness, which are things that in the public dialogue are it's like beyond shame and stigma. I'm thinking of the fact that in the past week we had RFK's very, very public comments about autism and autism spectrum disorder, and even the suggestion of something like an autism registry, which, if you have paid attention to the history of fascism in the past 100 to 150 years, is very, very scary. And so, Justin, I would love to hear a little bit more from you about, bringing the show to life right now, MYFS's collaboration, and also like approaching the topic of mental illness with understanding, education, and empathy.
Yeah. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, feeling that our world right now needs a lot of compassion towards one another. And I think that's always been the case, right? That's not a new need. That's not and I know you're not saying like magically, like as of last week, we all need compassion.
Well, we needed compassion when Joe Biden was president too. I
like,
be clear about
right.
that.
And so, and I think the addressing, that's what YSBs are here. Like YSB, Youth Service Bureau, by statute of Connecticut, we are part of the community to look at the needs of our community and address them with fidelity and as much energy as we have. And right now, Madison, where we're located, Madison Youth and Family Services, is not unlike any other community, right? We have people have messy lives, and that's just the fact. People have very messy lives, myself included, and those people need love and grace and compassion. And as you said earlier, Madison, one of the strengths of us as an agency is that it is wraparound service, right? We're able to say, we can support your young person with mental health services at either zero or very reduced cost. We take every single insurance under the sun, and if you don't have insurance, we're going to figure it out for you, right? We can make sure that you get signed up for every single benefit that you are eligible for, and then we have relationships with other folks that we're going to make sure you have those benefits. So right now, what feels important to me is that wraparound care, is that wraparound support, is that work. And so this, presenting, with the theater company presenting this in our community, these are folks, this is a reflection of every life, right? This is not just people who have experienced very specific things. We all have our things. We all need our love. We all need that care and support. And I'm really just proud of Madison Youth and Family Services and Madison as a community to be able to present this. So thank you. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would love to kick it over to Emma and Debbie, just because y'all have been quiet for a little while.
I think one thing for me is that the action of the play takes place from the 60s to the early 90s. So it also calls out that there has been some progress on rights and knowledge around trauma and mental illness. And so, things don't have to unfold the way they did at that time. There's more awareness. So I think that's a wonderful element of that audiences will see. Like, yeah, there's been progress. Like, these things happen. They don't happen as often anymore. So I think that's a wonderful thing about doing this play now. And I think, and yet there's truths that are just part of human life and nature, as Justin's kind of saying, that shame, resilience, how people deal with those things, how people deal with things that are stigmas in our society. Right? Those are kind of laid out there in front of us in this piece.
Debbie, yeah.
I'll just piggyback everybody on the same thing. There's also one of the things we haven't spoken about is, there's a pretty definite LGBT component to this, and how I don't know, I don't want to use the wrong word, but I'll say, how persecuted people were in earlier times. And then we talk about mental illness and other facets of life. And now we look at people kind of being hunted down for being marginalized citizens that our whole, the whole concept of our country is built on. I know yesterday they were talking about one of the federal agencies, their employees were asked to respond whether or not they were Jewish. I mean, like, what is happening? And so I think for all of us involved in the show, that as we're doing it and we talk about how things have progressed, we also worry about what the future is bringing and what some segments of our population are hearing from our politicians and leaders about who is acceptable and what is acceptable, and that we would return to harder times and go back from all the freedoms that we have won. I know that may sound very dramatic, but
no, it does not. I mean, so I grew up in a family, I'm Jewish, grew up in a family where my grandfather fought in the Second World War. So when there are things happening in this country, like people being disappeared off the streets by law enforcement, like, it actually does feel there's like a deep generational trauma response. So no, actually, I wish you sounded hyperbolic in this moment, and you don't. And I'm curious, for all of you, both within the show, and Justin, of course, within your work, but then beyond it, has doing this piece of theater, because I think the arts can really be a door and a bridge for many, many people. Doing this work, especially in this moment, made you think about just like how to care for people, not only children, but like each other. We are, one of my favorite sayings is like, we are each other's keepers. We are each other's harvest.
I want to go around what you just asked, but I also think at this time, I'm incredibly impressed. I think it's very, very brave of Marc to do this show at this time with, anger and all these outliers in the country in terms of what they're saying. I think it is a very important piece, and it brings the compassion of family and the ties of family forward. So I know I hadn't told you that, Marc, but I kudos. So it's, and I will be quiet now.
Well, I think these three main women didn't have a lot of options. They're like survivors, right? But they didn't always have access to what they needed, either for their mental well-being or financial, economic well-being, and they survived. So but in ways that maybe weren't always the best choices, because that's what they were able to do. So I think that too is kind of a timeless element to it, but also points out, like, yeah, there just weren't, these women didn't have access to education. I mean, it's Debbie's first speech about, yeah, she graduated high school and that was a big deal, but there wasn't going to be any way she was going to get to college in the Depression in Texas. So, just what we have access to, whether as women 20 years ago or today, or, anyone in their own life situation, how that plays out in other ways throughout your life, it impacts you.
My character has this one moment when I talk about how people and especially children, they think that mothers know everything, and my response is, hell, we don't know. There's an expletive. Hell, we don't know anything, and we're just trying to survive, and we're just hoping to make some good decisions so we don't mess everything up.
I do kind of feel like parenthood is faking it until you make it.
If you make it.
If you make it, yeah. Like I have I have a 1-year-old, and I have moments where I'm like, why did anyone entrust me with this human? Like, I don't know how to do this. And I really hope I don't mess this tiny little person up. Yeah, so I hear that just deeply. Marc, you look
I wanted to hop on to something that Debbie said that was in response to something you had said also. So I'm going to try and do it really concisely, I hope. And number one is that one of the goals, the style of the piece is very much in kind of a storytelling style. So each character will tell certain specific stories and share it with other characters, etc., from different times in Thaddeus's life and then different times in the subsequent women's lives. And one of the reasons for doing that was to show how things change and either evolve or devolve. Because, Emma had mentioned that a lot of things have changed and how the care that we get is changed. But so you had brought up, like, how did I feel about writing this during this time? And when I wrote it in 2020, we were going through quite a lot, and in a rather similar situation that we're faced with now, only it wasn't as empowered, but in my opinion, but I realized that I had to put forth that, yes, a lot of these things have changed, but they can change back. Like that. And this is what it would change back to. So that, for example, I'm working on a piece that is about the Holocaust, and I've been very, very interested in the Holocaust, fascinated, because I sang a lot of German opera and I lived in Austria for a decade. So it's National Socialism, and that's kind of just very, very important to me. And throughout the last few years, when people say like, oh, this will never happen, I'm like, no, you don't get it. This is the handbook. It happened on this date and it was exactly like this. Even just change the names, and actually you don't even have to change the names all that often. But so I did want to try and put forth, in terms of personal care and all of the different areas that we've discussed, how things were in those times, because people don't remember it. I remember a few years ago when we were presenting The Boys in the Band, and we were looking for some sponsorship and from an LGBTQ organization, and they wanted to help, but they didn't feel like their followers would be that interested in something that was from that long ago. And because like, well, we don't feel that shame anymore. Then the way that Boys in the Band, because it was written in the late 60s, dealt with a lot of, internalized homophobia and shame issues, and trying to, not ruin your life, if you will. And I totally understood that, but I also thought like, that's even more reason why your people need to see it. You need to be reminded of it. It's why we need, more documentaries about the food that we eat ruining us, and about what real mental illness is, and about immigration, real, yeah, scholarship done. So that was what I was thinking about as we put it across. And of course, there are some further complications that we have now. Funding is really difficult. People are kind of skittish about going anywhere. And it's weird to believe that even in Madison, Connecticut, and I remember when I first met with Justin, and I was so excited that he and their organization really wanted to produce with us and help us and lend their name to us, because it's not easy for them either. They've dealt with their own problems with different, even in rather blue Connecticut, there are some pockets that are really, really aggressive and angry and hostile. And I remember even saying to the board at Madison Youth, like, well, it's hard for me to fathom that the children in this community don't have everything they need, because there's this feeling that everything's really quite plentiful. I grew up in a rather plentiful environment in Southern California, and that all still happened to me. We had plenty of resources, but there was nowhere for me to go. You see what I mean? And the one time that I actually did reach out, they called my mother and had her come and get me. So, and I don't know if all of that is still happening now, but obviously all of the actions and all of the situations do still happen. And what we have to do is make sure that we can keep our platforms and our foundations to help people with it.
Justin, as someone who, like, you're in this work all the time, so I'd love to ask you, like, where are you sort of thinking as this work is produced, and you're clearly already thinking about like how to be a good steward and a good neighbor and take care of people both in your job and beyond your job, but how are you thinking about that right now, especially with this work coming to the stage?
And I do apologize. A work emergency is bubbling, so I'm happy to answer this question, and then I do need to
deal with whatever you need to go deal with.
No, totally.
Don't be sorry.
Oh no. So one, I talked to a dear friend the other day who said, I said, I just think like everybody, when things feel overwhelming, I'm like, I literally don't know what to do anymore. Like I don't know what to do. And it's so simple and so silly, but he just said, I just try to do the nicest thing I can do in the moment, like the kindest thing I can do in the moment. And when I'm sitting with a client, really the question is, what is the kindest thing I can do in the moment, right? And sometimes that means I need to spend an extra half an hour after work today to research and find another program that we can connect them with. Sometimes it literally means I don't feel like smiling when I'm at the middle school today because I'm just in a crabby mood, but there are seventh graders running around and they're being silly. And I just want to smile and let them know that there's an adult who smiles and feels joy in the world. And so I think being a good neighbor literally means, and whether that's professionally or personally, and sometimes it's digging into that well of what's the kindest thing we can do. And sometimes that means sitting with people when they're in pain and experiencing that and witnessing that and reflecting that and affirming them as a person. Sometimes that means being kind to humanity by speaking your mind and your heart, by saying what just happened is unacceptable. And sometimes it means being kind means saying, I need to take a step back and take care of myself and take care of my family before I step back in. And so I think it's really in our world right now, whether it's professionally or personally, how can we be as kind in every single moment? Maybe we miss the mark, and that is why I'm a person who believes in grace, and that's okay.
Thank you so much, and best of luck with your work emergency. I'm sending you all good thoughts right now and always.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you all. I deeply appreciate it.
So as we wind down, Marc, Debbie, and Emma, I want to ask you, this is a tough play, and vicarious trauma, also lived trauma, even when you're mining a work of art for its humor as well, is very real. So how do all of you, especially in this moment, practice self-care? How do you also make sure that your hearts are getting what they need?
Ladies first.
I think sometimes, when you work on a character or play, it can be all consuming, right? You jump in and you're exploring and, within your world. But I think with a piece like this, it's important to, close the work, kind of clear things, and then go back to your day and, kind of prepare yourself to put your work aside, and when it's time to work, put your life aside.
Debbie, take it away.
Well, I think one of the things that really helps is that we have such a good group of people. We have a group of people that are very supportive of each other and reach out to each other and stuff like that. And so that's sharing, sharing the moment and the trauma with somebody who is experiencing it as well. So to me, the whole thing about acting is to, it is the safest space that I know of where you can take trauma of your character and present it forward and knowing that you will be touching other people's trauma and allowing that to happen. To me, that's, people say, oh, it's just about the applause. No, it's really not. At least it's about sharing that universal experiences that we all have in some way, and then sharing them with each other and allowing the audience then to experience that in a safe space as well. So I have a dog. I walk on the beach. I eat Girl Scout cookies. They're providing them at rehearsals, so that helps. All of those are good things, but really it's about the people.
Girl Scout cookies are great. I want to plug all of that. I'm also a big fan of dogs and beaches. But just the Girl Scouts, I think people don't know that just as an American organization, they do really cool work for young people. And the cookies make you happy. It's like a win-win. Marc, take us home.
So I absolutely loved what everyone said. And I think back actually to one of the later speeches that my character actually says, and he reflects back to kind of tell the audience, well, understand, I've had a really good life. I've had a successful career on the stage. I was able to make a living as a performer my entire adult life and to be able to use my gifts. I've had wonderful relationships. I have a wonderful marriage. And part of the reason that I've been able to do all of that is I was able to take what came through in my early life and redefine it and put it out there for an audience. So, in a way, by doing this work now, it heals me. It puts out there what I'm really feeling, and makes me feel like I'm in a safe place. And I will say that the cast has been so tremendous, even in the short time we've been working together, of just making me feel like I'm in a safe place. And so when they want to know like a lot of backstory about this, about the other, I feel completely comfortable. And I don't leave the rehearsal feeling, oh, I'm just so exposed, or I'm in that place and I feel so down. Actually, I feel quite exhilarated. I feel like it's all lifted off of me because each time they portray it and they bring a different aspect to it, and the funny parts, that's really important, that they make it feel like it's all okay, and it makes me see them and remember them again. And that's the great gift that great actors and great people have.
Mm.
And I think our knowing that you've come out the other end is also a positive message for people, and helps create that safe space. Like,
Yeah,
the audience doesn't have to worry about the outcome
right. Because I'm there.
because we know there's a happy ending.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Emma Paulsier-Ray, Debbie Freund, Marc Deaton, and Justin Ziegler of Madison Youth and Family Services, who is dealing with a work emergency. Justin, we appreciate you, even though you had to pop off. Thank you for the life-saving work that everyone does. I think the arts are life-saving too. I know young people and not young people who wouldn't be here if it weren't for the arts. So thank you all for the work that you do every day. A Memory of Truth is premiering on the grounds of the Deacon John Grieve House for 4 performances, 4 only, y'all, May 9th through 11th at Madison Lyric Stage. If you want to get tickets, and you should, you can go to madisonlyricstage.org. That's one word, /memory of truth, another / or just go to madisonlyricstage.org, and there's a cute little drop-down menu that will take you to all of the productions. Thank you all so much for joining me on this Friday. It was gray when we started this interview, at least in New Haven, and the sun came out. So I think that's a sign. I appreciate all of you being here, and I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.